Hey there, my name is Jaden, here for Foamarmory, and today I'm making a Cylon as a gift for my dad for Christmas. Check it out. Today's helmet is based on, you guessed it, a Pepakura pattern in the description down below. Pepakura is a free program from Tomasoft that we rely on a lot on this channel, so I encourage you to check it out and pop in on our Tuesday live streams where we talk about making your own patterns using this awesome piece of software. After printing out these patterns, it's time to trace our pieces onto foam. For the faceplate, I went back to my roots with a 10mm foam mat. This piece will give the final product a ton of added depth, and it gives me the warm fuzzies deep in my heart. I went ahead and fully traced and cut out the faceplate before pulling out some 6mm HD foam for the rest of the build. 6mm is a great thickness to work in for head pieces. It's going to help our layered and recessed pieces feel appropriately beefy while not being so thick that it resists heat forming. Plus, 6mm is thick enough to let us carve in the grill of the mouth with our Dremel rotary tool. The cascading, layered effect was easily ground in with a stone bit, and sculpting it in this manner helps us avoid additional seams and gluing. Speaking of which, before we can glue everything together, we need to give all the pieces a solid pass from our heat gun to help seal the outer pores and subtly start to form the foam pieces into their final shape. This doesn't need to be perfect. Contact cement will take it the rest of the way. Gluing together the Cylon was surprisingly simple, because of the way I chose to layer most of the pieces rather than doing offset edge joins. Basically, for pieces like the triangular panels at the back, I cut the interfaces wide to glue them to the inner face of the side of the helmet. At the end of the day though, this build is not terribly complex, which is part of the beauty of it. It's a chromy, retro piece of glory. The most important thing is to keep your references nearby and refer to them often to keep your construction clean and correct. That way, when we pull out the rotary tool and our stone bit, we don't need to do much other than tidy our seams and keep those edges sharp, smoothing between some of the larger shapes of the mask. It can be easy to skip this step, but it makes filling any mistakes even easier in the long run. I guess the message here is that you could skip steps in this process, but it makes each following step way more difficult. After test fitting my lights, courtesy of Jupiter Electronics, we reach for the Mod Podge for an initial coat on our piece. Quick tip, sometimes glue scabs can form in larger pots, so be sure to keep them out of your mixes. I opted to add a little quick seal and water to this coat because I wanted this to be as smooth and as flexible a seal as I can muster on a budget. Being sure to watch for drips and runs, I applied a liberal coat in and out to the whole helmet. After leaving it to dry, I applied a dusting of gray Plastidip to highlight any issues with my seams. For those last-minute touch-ups and pores that need covering, we turn to Quick Seal. It's flexible, paintable, and easily smoothed out with a little bit of water and your fingers. Don't shy away from a second coat here. We're shooting for a mirror-like surface, so any imperfections will be impossible to hide on the final product. Being sure to respect our dry times, the finished sculpt received 3 coats of Plastidip and black gloss Rust-Oleum spray paint alike. This build was a great test piece for my first foray into graphite powder finishes. This stuff is phenomenal. Messy, but phenomenal. With just a cotton ball, I was able to buff the piece to a mirror shine, and once dry, I found that with minimal handling, I didn't even really need to seal the helmet. With our Cylon turning into one chromy boy, all that was left was to install our lights. This custom piece was made by Jupiter Electronics, and I took 2 strips of black craft foam and wrapped either sides of the lights for protection, holding everything together with electrical tape before hot gluing the unit into the eye socket. With all the final touches in place, the build was finally ready for Christmas morning. Oh, that is cool. That's so cool. Oh, that is cool. So, obviously, I don't actually have this thing with me here. I'll toss those pictures up again. This thing was a ton of fun to build, and it was super exciting to get to use my graphite powder for the first time. I had heard mixed things, but honestly the finish on this thing is what really sells it. And of course, I have to give a big thanks to Jupiter Electronics for that light piece. If you want to pick one up for yourself, I'll put a link to his Etsy store down below. This was a really fun build for me because it's a little outside my wheelhouse. It's definitely something I wouldn't have done other than as a gift for someone else, which is always exciting because it pushes me to try new things. Not to mention I did this on a pretty intense time crunch. I want to say it only took about 3 days from start to finish, and I was working on other things at the time, including my Mando and other things. I can't say it's the best build for a beginner, but it was still pretty straightforward to put together, and I think it definitely utilizes a lot of the fun principles of Pepakura that we talk about a lot in our live streams. A couple quick notes if you're looking to make one of these for yourself. Be sure that the angled cuts you make where the fin meets its side are pretty deep. You want that to be a pretty flush 90 degrees all the way around. Also, you're going to want to pretty intensely bevel the inner eye slat. It's pretty deep. You're also going to want to leave yourself some extra material to glue the side of the fin to the side of the helmet along one of those edges, just because it's a nice clean 90-degree edge and we don't necessarily want to do corner to corner join. That's not fun. But other than that, it's super simple. I didn't have to do any crazy filling on this. I didn't have to do anything stupid complicated. It just looks really pretty. And I hope to see some of you folks try that out as well. If you like these builds, if you like these templates, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a lot, and we are just barreling towards 1,000, so I could not be happier. It's time, as always, to give a big shout out to my patrons: Austin of AJ Plays Piano, Jennifer Zayer, K-Snake, Pandulce, Matt G, Wilson Ferreira, and Landon STR. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. It helps me put these builds out, and it helps me do giveaways in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care.